We have this fun pickup truck that we're going to work on today, learning texture here. And this is a great piece that you can put in an envelope and mail to someone, or put it in a frame and display it for your holidays. So let's get started on our line drawing. Well, you can make this truck a variety of colors. I've got my tropical set here. You can use this from any kit that you have. I have this red over here that I've mixed up with a little bit of some black to give it more of that cranberry color there. And then I have this one that has a little bit of brown added in, and I kind of like that color. And then I also just have a plain red. So I think for today I'm going to use this red color, and I might tap in a little bit of this, and then we've got greens mixed up for our tree. So I'm going to start with the truck. I'm going to move over here and do the back so that this will have plenty of time to set up and dry ahead of working on our tree. Now, I've got my brush loaded with lots of water and paint here, so I'm using the very tip of that to go around some of these little squiggle lines that represent our fresh cut Christmas tree. And we're just going to carefully go around that area so that we feel good about those lines, because ultimately this needs to go into the background. So if you're going to err on the side of having white between that green and the red than accidentally painting over the tree. And it's okay if it gets into this wheel well here, because we'll be painting that the same color. So I'm going to go in while it's wet and sort of tap in some of that red that has a little bit of brown mixed into it and see what kind of effect we get. I'm going to clear my water brush every time in between over here, just to kind of regulate now the pigments. We'll just keep moving around. We can take all the time in the world, or we can just kind of get our first pass here. Get this first layer down. You can leave some white of the paper in between your parts on your truck if you want. And I'm going to go ahead and pop in some of that red and brown mix. This is a great motif to do as a family. If you want an activity to do, we always make cookies and decorate them. It's so much work, but I think we're going to start a new tradition where we actually paint, because I've already done the work, and you could do the same thing and buy some take-and paints for everybody to use. Get a couple of brushes, and it's definitely better for your health and less mess, if you can imagine that. And I'll just tap some of that in there. So we're just going to kind of keep moving along. As you see, I'm going to leave a little bit of the paper there just to allow for an accent. I left those little spaces so that you could imagine that the metal is reflecting the light. Alright, we've just got a couple more places of our red to do. You could go over the whole thing with red if you wanted to. It's not a problem, it just won't have as much unique detail to it. And the more water you have in your paint mixed in there, then the more it disperses, which means the white of the paper shows and looks like a pink, which is great if you're painting flowers and you're looking for a pink. If you're wanting a red truck, that is not so great. So you can keep that in mind. Now I'm going to take this paint. See, it started to dry a little bit, but we just reactivate it with a little bit of water and Start to dab that in a few places, starting to look kind of rustic. All right, so we will let that dry. Take a little bit of black. If you have this tropical set and you don't have some of these extras in here, you can always get a tube of watercolor paint and put a dab into here or in your pan. It will dry and reactivate any time. I've got a ton of water there, so I really do have to be careful that I don't get my hand in that. So now I'm just going to put this little kind of silvery area in here. Kind of went outside the line there, so I'm going to combine that a little bit just so it doesn't stand out too much. So I've got this running board here. Going to pretend that it is wood. And I think I'm going to use this darker red here, which I should have done this with the red. And you would want that brown to dry first. Take your time. I'm kind of moving along, and that's going to dry very interestingly. So let's see what happens with that. I will now come in here and kind of do a window like it's glass. Leave a little bit of white so it looks like it's reflecting. And I can take a clear brush, kind of come across here and loosen up some of that paint. Now it's going to look a little bit pink. You may want to just keep it white of the paper, but I'm making it like kind of a light red. And I may add a little bit of something to that. You can kind of design your truck as you wish. And we'll let that dry, and then we'll paint the tree. For my tree, I'm going to just put in a little bit of this light green in a few places and come in with our darker green and just go kind of in batches. I'm going to get the edge of that with the tip of my brush and in here. And what I mean by batches is I'm going to start by sort of painting in groupings. You can kind of almost go in lines if you'd like, kind of across this way, not even really following my lines. The edge is what's most important, and those little lines in there start to make that design make sense as far as the tree goes. Okay. Just kind of doing a process here of tapping in, and I'm going to get some of these edges in here so we maintain that shape. And you can see I'm leaving a white of the paper, and that's what gives it that fun texture. If you paint it all in solid, it just won't have that fun, whimsical look. If you do it and you feel like it's too thick, then you can use a darker color and let that lighter color sort of be as if it was this white of this paper to at least give some differentiation and some texture there. And now I'll make sure this one is kind of nice and dark and filled in with pigment. You can always kind of, when it's wet, sort of tap in some darker color to some areas, and it'll just kind of deposit, travel a little and deposit there. So some of these trucks come with a Merry Christmas on them, and some of them come plain like this. Enjoy your Christmas truck.